Hi, welcome to Meet 1000. Meet 1000 is an online pay-per-session course. And with each session, what you'll receive is a video accompanied by weekly exercises that are designed to help you build a community harmonious to who you are. Now, each session is designed to last about one session per month, but you can move at the pace that you prefer. If you want to move faster and do more than one session a month, or if you want to move slower, take your time, maybe do one session every 6 months, what you'll get is you'll get the session and then you'll get 4 concurrent exercises to go with that session, and then the next session will be available to you, and you can decide if you want to purchase that one session at a time. So what we're doing in Meet 1000 is, in many of my classes, I talk about how we tend to look at people as right or wrong. So a lot of times within our perspective of reality, we think another person's belief, like maybe their political party or their religious affiliation or the way they conduct their lives is right or wrong. And this can create tribal bounds for us, which also can create missed opportunities. There might be people out there for you that you pass every day. Meet 1000 is about paying attention. It's not necessarily about crossing those tribal bounds. That's not what it's about. It's about paying attention. It's about becoming aware of the world around you and getting past the concept of right or wrong and more into the concept of building an ecosystem. So we're looking at the concept of that person that I may think of as wrong. What I'm going to think instead is maybe that they aren't a healthy part of my ecosystem. Who they are doesn't work in my ecosystem. It's designed. This course is designed to help us create an organic path to the people most compatible to who we are. So it can sometimes seem like there are not enough people in the world because we tie ourselves to these small groups. Or we spread ourselves too thin. We are adapting in too many places, trying to fit in. And it's not just about creating balance. All the time we hear create balance. Balance is not, okay, I'm going to try to live both of these two extremes and land somewhere in the middle. It's more about how we apply those extremes in a sense. So where in the case we are maybe binding ourselves to too small a groups or spreading ourselves too thin, this class is more about learning to branch out, but also while we're learning to not expand too much. We want to go just the right distance in just the right direction for us. So in addition to new approaches, we're also going to be releasing some of our old approaches. We will not be working on surface level issues in this course. So we're not here to work on our boundaries or to create situations that might feel uncomfortable or reaching out to do things that aren't things we really want to do. Every person in this course is going to have a unique experience. Your experience is going to be your experience. There is not just one way to do anything. What we want to do is expand the deeper levels of our being. And so to do that, what works for some may not work for you. And in this course, we want to address more awareness. And awareness is about a lot more than adaptation. You don't need to change who you are. With 7.5 billion people on the planet, you can find plenty who are already compatible to the person you are today, people you may not have seen before. So this is about beginning to see the world in a different way. So how are we going to get there? We meet thousands of people every day, but do we do it with intent? Intent is everything. We as a global society tend to have an unrealistic approach to relationships, particularly romantic relationships. We are taught to seek lifelong intimate relationships through interview processes with complete strangers. Think about that for a minute. We are literally picking the people we want to spend the rest of our life with, and the people we pick those from are dates with people we've never met before. We're often trying to decide within hours of knowing someone. If you've only been on 5 dates and those dates are a couple of hours each, you've known someone for 10 hours before you're deciding if you should do that first kiss, or if you're ready after 6 months to decide if it's time to up level the commitment. These are very short periods of time overall, and it is very difficult to fully know a person. So a lot of times we can end up in situations where we start to compromise ourselves because of time investments, because we feel we've invested time. So we want to start to be able to look at that in a different way. It can take decades to truly know a person. And in some cases, we're deciding to commit to someone for life after only knowing them a few short months or a couple years. Even if you're a person that doesn't rush into relationship, a couple of years of knowing someone is a relatively short time. And so this is what ends up leading us to compromise or regret, and deciding that we maybe need to accept things that aren't really the ecosystem we want. So what I'm introducing in Meet 1000 is a more organic way to build relationships that allows us to be ourselves without compromise, and naturally connecting with people who complement the person we are. In this first class, I'm going to talk about what I consider to be a healthy approach to relationship. So beyond this video, there will be an article posted for you to read and a daily practice you can follow. Each week, I will introduce a new exercise, and every month we'll offer a new video. Those daily practices will show up in what I estimate to be week-long segments. Again, you'll have the one video along with 4 exercise sessions after it. The first class is free, so you can participate in that without commitment. If you like it, you can just go ahead and purchase the next section and move on from there. The minute one section is completed, the next section will be available for you. So this gives you an opportunity with the first free session to go ahead and try it and see if it works for you. And let's dig into the concept of building relationships that we will be using in this course. So you can start today to take advantage of the life you are already living, to meet not just that special someone, but a whole group of people organically fitted to finally give you the happily ever after you deserve. So to begin, we're going to learn the 5-stage process of how relationships grow organically. It may seem obvious at first. As I continue, you might say, of course, that's how relationships work. But when we're done talking about this organic path, we're going to go into asking ourselves if we actually follow this organic path. It can make sense, but are we using it? The majority of the world isn't. And if you aren't experiencing healthy relationship with the world around you, it is possible you're in that group. Again, the lion's share of the population is in this dynamic of not using this more organic pattern. Now, this isn't a moment for us to judge ourselves. You can only know what you've learned to date. And there aren't a lot of opportunities in our current social model that teach us how to let relationships form organically. There's a lot of pressure to comply to a system that really isn't an organic system. So all we're realizing today is this is just where we're beginning. This is just our starting point. Where we're about to go next is what's exciting, and that's where our focus is going to be. As a note, I do want to say, if you do want to know more, if you do want to understand more about the underlying motivations of the current model and of relationships in general, so why do we do what we do? If you're looking for information on that, if you're wanting to understand how relationships work, there is a class I teach called Relationship Balancing. The Relationship Balancing class delves into the underlying reasons why we relate with others the way we do. I'm not going to get into that in this class. This course is all about meeting people and building community. That class will be available later this month for you if you decide you're interested in knowing that information. It is a really powerful course, but for this course, our concentration is going to be on the activity of interacting with others and how do I find people that are more naturally suited to be in my ecosystem. So with that clarification done, let's talk about how relationships grow organically. I'm going to do this in 5 stages. So stage 1 is the stranger, right? Every person you now have in your life entered your world as a stranger. Even your family, all your relationships with your parents, with your siblings, they all began with you being foreign to one another. Strangers are people we don't know, we can't predict, and not even if they're familiar. As we move deeper into this study, I'll talk about feeling like we know people we've never met, and how that can affect the dynamics of how we build our relationships. But today I just want to lay the groundwork. So stage 1 is strangers. These are people we do not know. Stage 2 of relationship is the acquaintance. The second relational step that naturally occurs after being a stranger is to become acquaintances. This can seem an obvious statement, but many of us miss it. The truth is, we meet far more strangers than we realize because we fail to notice them. Acquaintances are those people with whom we connect, the people we want to know better, the people we remember if we see them in the street. They are people who have piqued an interest in us, with whom we've shared some commonality or had a really great conversation. So they're people who aren't quite strangers, but they're also not quite stage 3. And stage 3 is, of course, the friend. We often forget the early days of friendship. There are a series of natural steps that occur with the people we call our friends. These are probably the most organic relationships in our lives. We meet strangers, we become enthralled enough with them to make them acquaintances, and then they quite naturally become our friends. Friends are the people with whom you prefer to spend your time. They are the people you call when you need support. They exist in your day-to-day thoughts and are the first people you think to call when you have something to celebrate. They are the glue that seems to hold our lives together, moment by moment, day by day, shared experience by shared experience. Now, while many of us do have unhealthy friendships, friendships tend to be the most healthy relationships in our lives. Over the months, we'll get into the details of experiencing healthy relationships or even opportunities to transform the relationships you already have. It's important to realize we don't need to start over again. This program is organic. If you follow an organic path, things will naturally evolve. So we're talking about getting into an organic path. We're not talking about radically transforming our lives. Our lives will radically transform by following that path. And it'll do so easily and effortlessly. It doesn't need to be strenuous. So again, friends are those people that we have connection with, that we are more than acquaintance with, that are the day-to-day people in our lives that we interact with the most. So that moves us to stage 4, which is what I call the companion. So the question is, where does the line fall between some friends and others? Our closest, most amazing relationships, whether they are platonic or romantic, are the companions of our lives. These are our best friends. These are the people we travel with or we call when we need to move. They are the ones who offer support when we suffer pain. Our companions are as much us as even our own identity. They are our tribe, our community, our family. There's no drug more powerful to humans than connection. We are not pack animals, but we are social animals. We need other humans. And so the people that are companions are the humans that we most connect with, that are the most compatible with who we are. They are the people that make our life worth living. Without them, our existence can feel devastating. And with them, it's bliss, right? These are our people. Now, this is where some of our most dysfunctional relationships exist. Not because having companions is dysfunctional, but because we can begin to define ourselves through having the relationship, making ourselves vulnerable to its fluctuations. People are crushed every day by the loss of close relationship. People will lose the desire to live themselves, or to have faith, to love again, or move beyond tragic loss. I'll delve deeper into how to maintain a sense of healthy self-worth and value with these relationships that is not subject to the relationship itself. Again, I'm not going to get into that today. Today, I just want to set this foundation of the 5 stages. So again, companions are our best friends, our closest allies, and the community we generally call our tribe. So finally, we're to the 5th stage. So what is the 5th stage? This is the partner. To begin, I'd like to firmly state that we have more than one. You may have a romantic partner, or a best friend, or a comrade in arms. These are the relationships that I define as the people with whom we share a life path. Our partnerships are our long-term relationships. So there's a separation between companion and partner here. So there's a separation between companion and partner. In the idea, we can have companions, very close friends, people that we spend every day with, that we feel really bonded to. And those relationships can still last short periods of time. Partners are our long-term relationships, the people we know best in the world, the people who know us. So they're the people that have seen our worst and our best, and that we stay connected to regardless of distance or life changes. These are the relationships that have stood the test of time for us. So they are the people we can trust in any storm. They are the people who stand by our side, whether through success or failure, and not just through their support, but through their participation in it. They're actually engaged in how successful or struggling we are in our lives. They are an integral part of who we are. So we have those 5 stages, right? Stage 1, we meet strangers. Those strangers become acquaintances, who over time become friends, who over commitment become companions, and who over long periods of time and a lot of interaction become our partners in life. So that's the introduction to the course. Again, I mentioned there's an article that goes into a bit more detail about what I've talked about today. That article is going to be the first step that you take after the video to be able to read that and really lock down this concept that is the initial realization of how relationships work organically. And then after the article, I am going to dig into each one of those 5 stages in depth with exercises for you to interact and understand where you currently are in your life. So that first set of contemplative questions, that first exercise, as I mentioned, you'll have the video and then the article, and then that will be followed by 4 different exercise sessions. So the first of those sessions will also be available, so you can begin your contemplation. Again, if you want to know more about relationships and how they work, first relationship balancing course is also free, so you can go give it a try and see if it's something that piques your interest. If you're more into taking the action and you like what you're seeing here, you can go ahead and continue with this course. There is one more thing I want to address before we go, and that is the idea of following this natural path. A lot of people hear about it and say, oh, to have really good, healthy partners, I need to begin at strangers, and I need to spend this arduous journey starting over or redeveloping. And this can seem disheartening to think it can take years to develop entirely new relationships. But the truth is, you're doing it all the time. Most of our suffering comes not in taking the time, but in expecting ourselves to know a person without taking the time. You are not starting from scratch. Throughout the whole process of this journey, you will have exciting experiences and you will expand your circle significantly. So you are not going to be worrying about building one relationship over the next, however long it takes to naturally go from meeting a stranger to having friends and companions and partners in our lives. You are going to be building a lot of relationships at once, which is absolutely amazing. So your life is going to be full and rich, and it's not going to rely on just one person to do that. You can have that one person who is a partner, or two or three, those partnerships of your closest allies. You can have those, but you're also going to be building a lot of community, being surrounded by people that naturally, organically fit in your ecosystem. So it's not just community, people present. It's people present that naturally and organically complement who you are. This is going to be a rich, full day-to-day experience. Over time, there is a natural course of development, the coming together of understandings. We're still often met with surprising discoveries of those we've known for years, but in the end, trust is built a day at a time over conversations or actions, one moment after the next. This is about engaging in that organic process in a conscious way with intent. It's not anything you're not already doing in your life, but it's the suggestion that there might be another level of awareness at which you can do it that might transform the experience you have of community. So that is it for this video. Again, the article is next, and then there will be some questions for contemplation, and this is the beginning of the weekly work that we do. So if you feel ready, you can just move on to the next step, however you decide to move forward. I do wish you tremendous success on your journey.